I went up to his house in San Francisco and set up a ring on his house really early. I was trying to like get influencers on Ring. So I was like, literally, I was flying around and setting them up on people's homes. And he went to Branson's Island for like something, and they're having dinner. And, Richard's like, what are people seeing? What's cool? And he said, look at this. I answered my door from the beach today and told like the UPS person where to put the package, and like showed him the video. And Richard's like, oh, I want to give this to my friends for the holidays. So I get this email. Like at first I'm like, oh, great. His friend Richard wants to give 20 rings. It's like, here, I'm so swamped. And then I look and I'm like, oh, wow. Like this email address looks like it's not like Richard. It's Richard.
Jamie, I am so excited for this. I'd obviously heard so many great things from Dave Clark, obviously most prominently, but thank you so much for joining me today, Jamie.
Thank you for having me, Harry.
Not at all, but I wanted to start with some context. And so what was the... I can go in a number of different ways here. I'm going to go in the first way and then we'll go off schedule a little bit later. What was the aha moment for you when you thought, you know what, I'm going to revolutionize the doorbell? Can you just take me to that moment, Jamie?
I mean, really, it was probably when Amazon bought it in 2018. But if you want to try to go a little early, because it was a slow burn aha. I hacked this thing up. I was in my garage building other stuff. And I literally couldn't hear the doorbell. I had just gotten an iPhone, and it was one of those, I went online and looked to see, I wanted to get, like, I didn't even think I invented it. I wanted to get a Wi-Fi doorbell, and it didn't exist. And so I was like, oh, let me kind of hack something up. So I literally just like hacked this thing up. And then my wife said, this makes me feel safer at home. And I was like, that was like part of the aha. And then it was an iterative aha. It wasn't just like a, wow, I invented this, the band plays and everything's great.
The fireworks went off.
Fireworks were going off, and they put me on a chair and took me around the room and sang. None of that happened for a very long time.
No bar mitzvah style. Always a shame.
Nope. Zero.
I do want to ask, we spoke about this, but I think it's actually really important. I find people are reflections of their histories. You love the show and you've had it before. What do you think you're running from, Jamie?
I think I'm running to help people. Like, I love using my mind. I think my happiest thing is when I can use my mind to help people. And so I'm probably running from, where I was, as a kid. I was definitely like, I was not the coolest person. And I'll just say I was not the coolest person in school. Like, I did not have, I had definitely my share of incidents where looking back, I would have liked to have been the cooler person. So maybe there's something about that made me turn to that. But I think the inventor in me, I just see problems everywhere. And I want to solve them. And probably the hardest thing I had to learn was you can't solve every problem for everyone, because then you do nothing. And so it was like how to focus that energy was what took me a while to learn, and took me till I got older sort of to sort of harness.
I feel so sorry for Melissa and your team, because we did so much work on this, but I'm just totally freewheeling. You mentioned not being necessarily cool as a kid. I wasn't either, and I'm a people pleaser as a result. I desperately seek other people's approval and always try and please other people. Sucks when you're a manager and a CEO, by the way.
Yeah,
not a good trait. Are you a people pleaser as a result? And I guess what advice would you have for me? Always looking for people's affirmation.
I think I certainly do. I always say I don't have an ego, but I certainly like people seeing me successful. That was certainly a way to, I would say, looking back, it's not terrible that people had to send me emails saying like, wow, I can't believe where you've gotten to. Like that's, again, I don't think it's the reason you should do it, but it doesn't hurt. Yeah. But I think also, a lot of entrepreneurship is like reality distortion. You have to believe in something that's so much bigger and crazier than what can actually be accomplished, that I think when you're a kid and you're in that position, like one thing I learned, so I moved schools because I was like literally like ostracized from my high school. And I moved to, my parents were like very nice because they were middle class, and I went to the private school, and they paid for me, to go. And it was a little bit of a hardship. And so, but when I got there, I was just like, I'm going to be the cool kid now. And I just made up this sort of this life, because by the way, screw it. Like, why not? And I think that's part of entrepreneurship is like, you gotta like a little bit, you gotta make it up, because when you're in your garage building a doorbell, if you really told people like what you really felt and where you were at, you probably would never make it. And so you have to say, yeah, like I'm going to build the biggest security company ever in the history of the world. I mean, you got to like be a little crazy. So maybe that's what taught me that.
I think in terms of like, bluntly, people seeing you succeed, I think one moment in particular where I'm sure a lot of people mentioned it to you, but was when Richard Branson invested. And I heard this was a great story. Obviously, Dave prepped me well. How did Richard Branson come to invest in Ring?
So I'll give you the longer, and feel free to make it as short as you want. But so Richard invested a venture capitalist named Wes Chan, who was at Google Ventures. I went up to his house in San Francisco and set up a Ring on his house really early. I was trying to like get influencers on Ring. So I was like, literally, I was flying around and setting them up on people's homes. And he went to Branson's Island for like something, and they're having dinner. And, Richard's like, what are people seeing? What's cool? And he said, look at this. I answered my door from the beach today and told like the UPS person where to put the package, and like showed him the video. And Richard's like, oh, I want to give this to my friends for the holidays. So I get this email, like Wes, who I kind of knew, but like, it's like Wes is like, hey, Richard copied wants to give rings to his friends for the holidays. So at first I'm like, oh, great. Like his friend Richard wants to give 20 rings. It's like, here, I'm so swamped. And then I look and I'm like, oh, wow. Like this email address looks like it's not like Richard, it's Richard. And so we started going back and forth, and I said, it's going to be great for your friends to get this for the holidays because it actually makes their homes safer and their neighborhoods. And Richard's like, what do you mean? And then I sent him this link. We had just had our first, like, our mission was always to make neighborhoods safer. And we had just had our first real big, like, got a criminal in the act, like, stopped them, got like the whole thing. So I sent Richard the link. And then he, immediately was like, wow, I this is amazing. I had no idea. And this was like on a Friday. He's like, I'm going to have someone there this weekend. And then he said, can I invest? I said, well, we were kind of looking at closing a round right now. I don't want to like rush you. He said, I'll have someone there this weekend. And so this poor Latif, who worked for Richard in the venture group, shows up on like Sunday, not happy. Like you could see the call of Richard being like, hey, Latif, it's Richard. Like, I'm on the island and a doorbell came up and like, I need you to go to LA and meet with this Jamie, like Latif's like, oh, like, like my life, he's like, probably like, this is just my life.
And so what happens? So Latif turns up and says, hey, we want to do the deal. Like, just take me to that moment.
Latif, honestly, I love Latif. He's like one of my good friends now to this day. But Latif honestly showed up and was like, I have to check this box for Richard. And so like, let's do this. And so for the first like 15 minutes, I would say it was not he was very nice, but it was not like, I wouldn't say he was leaning in. 2 hours later, Latif said, I'm going to see if I can invest also in this personally.
I love that. That is hilarious.
So he definitely to be fair, like he did listen. We did, and from there on, and Richard really became one of the huge steps in the business. Just the credibility that came with Richard coming in, and Richard said, I'm investing because this makes neighborhoods safer. And that was like, that credibility of Richard saying that really turned the whole thing.
Can I ask, a lot of people ask, like, what really is the value of having big names like Richard? Does it really make it worthwhile? When you reflect on that, how would you answer founders who say, when you have Richard Branson, when you name those kind of incredible business moguls, how would you advise them on whether it's worth taking or not?
I think mostly people want to put a square peg in a round hole. So they want like Richard Branson invested, and they like step back and like wait for the customers to come in. And like, that's not going to happen. Richard Branson doing a blog post saying, I invested in this because it makes neighborhoods safer and I'm a missionary investor. And here's this interesting thing about this, was one of 1,000 things that led to our brand being big. But it was an important one, but it was one of it. So you had to also play this into a whole, like, a rolling thunder of things. It was not just one piece, but it was an important piece. And so I think that everyone always asks me, like, I get introduced to someone and they say, like, what made Ring? Like, I'm building this product, like, what made Ring? And I always say it's the mission that made Ring, and then the 1,000 things that we drove to do that. It's not like they're there's literally 1,000 things I could talk about.
Well, everyone always wants a silver bullet. It's like, hey, why do self-help books make so much fucking money? It's because the 3 things to lose weight.
Yeah, exactly.
Bullshit. But my question to you is, like, we all want the silver bullet, and we were chatting before the show, and I instantly realized that, I have a man crush on you when you said this, because I said about doing the work behind the scenes for the show and putting in the prep time. And you said about kind of people not necessarily doing the work today. What did you mean by people not doing the work in entrepreneurship, and how do you think about that?
I think that, like, it's the silver bullet thing. It's the, like, I go to conferences. I know, it's like, it's dirt under your fingernails. Like, I want the people that are missionary, passionate, dirt under the fingernails, and realize how hard this is going to be. And they're doing it for the right reason, which is to make an impact. That the thing they have in their brain, the thing they've felt, the thing they're doing in their gut has to happen. Like, it has to. Like, it doesn't matter. It has to happen. And those are the ones that I believe always make it. And the ones that are like, oh, yes, I have, like, this pedigree and this resume. We hired all these great people and we have all this great money. And it's like they don't dig down enough to get there. And that might have worked a little bit more in 2010 to 21 or 2, but the tide is out now. And if you don't know how to drive a bulldozer yourself, like, I don't know, like, I think you're in trouble.
My worry, Jamie, is we haven't needed to. I'm being very frank and open. Most of my companies still have money till mid-25. They have the same mindset as they did in the last 10 years, but they just have the runway to drive it out. And so my question to you is, like, bluntly, what are the signs of those that have the dirt under their fingernails for you when you're meeting founders, when you're meeting potential hires? Where are you like, this one's got it?
I think you just, and I've never been good at hiring, like, in terms of, I'm great at finding talent. I'm not good at, like, the 5 questions, same sort of thing. Like, but it's just seeing that person who, it's like Fight Club. Like, it's the person that you say, like, you can't work here, sorry. And then you come the next day and they're, like, sitting at the office. Like, they're like, it's like, you want that person that just, they have to do this. I always say, like, we want marathoners at Ring. And to me, a marathoner is like, doing a marathon is the dumbest. It's one of the dumbest things you can do. I think I have my marathon. Yeah, that's like my Boston Marathon shoes are back there from doing the Boston Marathon. It's like, so it's the dumbest thing you can do, but I want people that do that, which is you train for like a year in the dark. You're like, you have to get up at 3 a.m. because you do a 4-hour run before work. I mean, just like terrible. It's terrible. Then you go and do this race that no one watches, that no one, you're going to finish 20,000th place, like if you're a normal human, and you are so proud of yourself for it. Like, you're just so ecstatic on what you accomplished. Like, I want those people. I want the people that want to accomplish something, not because they want that top accolade. They don't want to be showered with stuff. They do it because they need to do it.
Do you want to hear something funny, Jamie?
Sure.
I finished a marathon an hour ago.
So see, like, you're crazy, and I want you to work with me. Like, there we go. And by the way, what place did you finish?
Well, I just did it, like, on my own in London. Like, there's.
How proud of you were you? Like how, like, stoked were you when you did that?
I do it like twice a week. So it's like,
okay, that's okay. Maybe you might be over the top. Like, you might be too much.
I told you, the reason people invest in me is because obsession to the extreme is my mission.
Okay, you might be a little far for us, but like,
poor Dave has to put up with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. We see like the Richard Branson moments, though, and like a lot of the incredible moments. There are always near-death experiences. Also, Dave said that I had to ask this one. When I say near-death experience for you with Ring, what's the one that's like, oh, I remember that one?
Well, we had like 4 or 5 real, like, run out of money kind of times. Like, even when we raised our A round, I remember I kept calling True Ventures because it was like the money was supposed to come in. And I'm like, hey, just wondering, like, when the wire's coming in, just, I got a plan for, like, we literally had like payroll on Thursday. It's like Monday, we're out of money. And they kind of knew it, but they kind of didn't. And I'm like trying to, like, not scare them that we're literally out of money. And so I'm like, they're like, oh, it's going to come in Wednesday. I'm like, that's great. Okay, cool. Thanks so much. Like, trying to be like super calm voice, like.
No worries if it comes in Wednesday afternoon.
Yeah, totally fine. Wednesday's fine. Like, Thursday we're bankrupt, but Wednesday's totally cool. The worst one, though, was the company is like, we're screaming. So we're growing, that's very hard on cash. Growth is an ugly thing. As good as it is for building value, it's ugly inside. I mean, you're hiring, you're thrashing, you're trying to get ahead of yourself. You have, especially in a hardware business, you have to order 6 to 12 months ahead. And so if you're growing hundreds of percents, like multiple factors, like I have to order, imagine like we went 3 million, 30 million, 170 to almost 500. So when we went from like 170 to 500, I had to order like $500 million of inventory when we were like $100 million business. So like, that's an incredible risk to take. So we are in that 170 to 500. We're going into the holidays and we have a round happening and I get sued by someone who's very large in the business. They get an injunction against the product on me, which, I will not comment on either way. The investor decides, and fair is fair, that like a little too risky now. And our $100 million investment gets pulled like days, literally. I mean, we had paper, everything's done. Gets pulled like days before the wire. And now, instead of having $100 million of fresh capital in, we have $0, can't raise. And we're heading into the holidays. We have our inventories at the highest level. And I mean, it is like the wheels, shot off the bus. We now owed money to our factories, which we couldn't pay, which is the only way we stayed in business, was basically just owing money to factories that we didn't pay. Like that's how so we probably went negative 50 to 70 million at one point. But that's just because we just didn't pay the factories.
How do you get through that, Jamie?
You're very stressed out. And I think like I've actually in the most extreme, I think one of my talents is like one of my few talents is in when things get to the most extreme, I actually get very calm. Like, so I'm like not a calm at like a normal level. Like I'm usually a little bit like passionate and whatever, but like when things go like that extreme, I'm actually like a pilot. Like I get my checklist out, like the wings could be ripped off the plane and I'm like calm and like reading the checklist. So I was like, okay, like we don't have money. I called the factories and said basically like, we don't have money. You need to ship us product or else we're like going to turn this thing off tomorrow. And like, I'm sorry to do this. Like and I told the team like I brought everyone under the covers. Like there was no hiding anything. Like I brought everyone in and said like, here's the situation. Here's where we're at. We need to sell everything we made. We got to sell this holiday. Like we do everything we can to sell everything we can this holiday. Like so everyone worked, everyone came together. And this is where people are always scared that when you say this, like everyone will leave your business. It's exactly the opposite. They literally are arm in arm with you. Like immediately, like everybody's just like no one, if you think about it, it's like kind of like a war. I mean, I'm not like a veteran or anything, but like, people stick together. And so especially when like there's an outside force that's coming at you. And so we went arm in arm and we freaking sold everything. And then we settled this case and the company was like, literally at this point, it was just, we broke the record for QVC for the year for sales in a day, $22.6 million in a day. I did that literally. I drank like 25 Red Bulls. I was on for 12 hours of TV. We almost killed ourselves to sell. We just did it. And so, and then what's crazy is that was going into the holidays of 2017. We signed the term sheet with Amazon on January 1st of 2018. So literally like, it was like from solving this to selling to Amazon was like 45 days.
Wow. I mean, that's can I ask, you mentioned the scaling processes there from 3 to 30, 30 to 170, 170 to 500. When I listened to that, I thought 130 to 170 sounds like the most difficult. It's almost like teenager to adult in transition. Which would you say on reflection was the most difficult transition phase?
I think they were they're all difficult because they all they all have their own issues. Like as you get bigger, the problem of bigger, you go from being like from 3 to 30, anything I could solve almost personally. Like if we made a mistake, like the size of the mistake was so small, like even our investors, like if I said like, hey, we made $1 million mistake, they'd be like, Jamie, like $1 million mistake, that's terrible. Like we'll give you another, like we'll do a a note for $1 million. Okay, great. 30 to 170, you're sort of in there, and you can kind of get people to like back you. 170 to 500, like they took away you're on the tightrope, and all of a sudden you look down and they're like pulling the mats away, like the safety net is being pulled away and when we had that issue come up, like our investors, like we didn't, like there was nothing they could do. Like they couldn't write $100 million check into like a company that had a problem. Like you couldn't do that. So that was probably, as you get bigger, it does get harder because of that. Because like literally the actual net numbers are harder.
I think what's so fascinating is when I spoke to so many of your investors, they said one of the very iconic and kind of important things about Ring was the brand. You mentioned the $22 million in sales in a day. Insane. It made me think, like, what does truly great brand mean to you, Jamie? What does it mean to have a great brand?
So what it means is that I always said with Ring, it's like when you walk into a store and you see our logo, you have to feel immediately like, I know that whatever's in that box is going to make my neighborhood safer. Like, so you need the brand, like as soon as you see it, you have to associate it with something that you know around that product. So you'll just, because that's how much time you have with the customer at point of sale. Like you have like 1 second.
Can I ask, is that storytelling? What's the difference between brand and storytelling?
I think it's authenticity. It's like, I think it's like literally it is like 1,000 things. And I think now when you have a North Star, everything drives to that. So it's how you build the product, how you build the service, my email's on every box, it's like the sound of it, it's like literally like everything you do, because it's like not that easy to build a brand. Like if it was, like there'd be lots of brands. And I think, iconic brands come initially from authenticity though too. Like you have to be, like the team has to be authentic behind it. You can't just make up a brand. Like maybe you can, but I don't know how you do it.
Many D2C erectile dysfunction companies in New York would disagree. You can't just make up a brand. The agency seems to do very well over the last few years. You said about authenticity. You put your number, your email on the side of the box, Jamie. Why?
Well,
seems
originally I was shipping 500 of them. It just felt like put your email on there so people get a hold of you. It was almost like a customer service thing. And then as we grew, at every level of growth, someone would come in and say, you have to stop doing this. It's not going to scale. And I say that putting the email in the box is the one thing that actually did scale at Ring. And the reason it did is because one is it made the team, my team knows, like thousands and thousands of people at Ring. And everyone knows that if someone emails me, I will respond to it and I will act on it. So if you're in customer service, you certainly know that like you want to deliver the very best on every call, because the customer has access to me. Now, because of that, it doesn't get that abused, which is surprising. And I think it's because like the team does such a good job of being accessible, of helping customers, of being customer first, because they know that this like system sort of will work. And then you also get ground truth. I think one of the biggest issues in business, this goes back to that dirt under the fingernails, and like we very quickly get into our ivory tower at our big conference rooms, and we have big meetings, and we go over survey results, and we're very proud of ourselves, but we don't get ground truth. And like, I think listening to ground truth directly is one of the most valuable things you can do to continue to grow. And the other CEO that I know who did it was Jeff at Amazon.com.
Okay, sorry, too interesting. I was going to ask something else, but fuck it. You misled me. Ground truth. What is ground truth, and how do you engage with it without also being a perfectionist or micromanaging?
And that's like, again, these are all the balances, like never, going too extreme. But ground truth, it's like listening, and again, you don't want to take like one email from one customer. Like you're not going to just go off and go crazy. Like, we're going to build a new product, like someone told me. But when you listen to these things, it's kind of like the Henry Ford. They always say if Henry Ford had asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses. But if you like listen to people and you listen, all of our features and all of our stuff comes from just like listening to that. Like one of the best examples is our car camera. I didn't want to do a car camera because I was like, our mission is around making neighborhoods safer. But I kept hearing people talk about issues with their cars in their neighborhoods and what that was. And like over time, I'm like, oh wow, not only am I going to build a car camera, I'm going to build something that's a different car camera, and that's the best one that's ever been built. And we were able to do that by getting the ground truth. If we had been doing surveys, and this is, I hate surveys, by the way. I like literally, in my gut, I hate them. Is like, because they don't tell you anything. They're like 95% of people are happy. 87%, like who gives a shit?
Well, okay. So you're just leading me so astray. Why do you hate surveys? So they're not useful. So what should we do instead? What's a better way to get more?
Listen to your fucking customers.
How? Like Twitter? Like
Be
understand?
accessible. Like yes, like Twitter. Like stop saying that it's not scalable. Like everybody says it's not scalable to listen to your customers. It is totally like that's the one thing you have. Like the only job you have all day is to listen to your customers. Like everything else is like superfluous. It's just like an add-on. It's gravy on the freaking turkey.
To what extent do you let customers guide your product roadmap? Hey, we need this, we need that. How do you determine between, hey, there's enough weight that we should do car cams?
So this is a great. So mission. So if you like, mission allows you to stay focused because one of the problems is like you don't want to build everything. Like I'm not trying to build. I don't know, like whatever, some other product that like it just sells, like a TV. I don't know, like I mean maybe Amazon does, but like I'm talking about like the Ring. So staying super focused on what we do. Our mission is to make neighborhoods safer. So everything now is like now you have a mission, everyone's focused on it, like our teams are focused on it, and now like listen to customers, listen to what they're really saying, and then when you understand your technology, your capabilities, and then you see what's happening. I think that magic again, our drone, like. The drone happened because people were saying, I want indoor cameras. I don't want indoor cameras. And I'm like, God, that's a weird, like, so you want an indoor camera? Like when I'm away, I want indoor cameras all over my house. Okay. But when I'm home, I don't want indoor cameras in the house. I'm like, well, that's tough. And then I'm like, wow, a drone can fly around the house. Well, there's no autonomous drones. Well, we know how to make, like we have LiDAR, like, oh, this is LiDAR. So we start hacking around and we make this thing that's not a drone. It's an indoor camera that can be anywhere in your house at any angle, anytime, but super privacy protected in terms of when you're there, it's like sitting in a shrouded thing and it doesn't do anything.
This sounds like my old girlfriends when they said, I really want money, but I also want lots of your time. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I agree with you. No, I love that. But that is challenging. Can I also, I think one thing that's like really fascinating here is like competition. You were going up against like Tony Fadell and Google in these products.
Yeah.
How was that as a competitive match?
I mean, imagine like I'm literally like basically just out of my garage in this like tiny little space. I mean, like we had to like move, like there was like chalk lines where like the murders were, before we got there. I mean, this place was like rough when we got to it. This little tiny little like garage office in Santa Monica. We're Doorbot still. We're not even Ring. We're Doorbot, and we're trying to build Ring. And I'm like, I'm so tiny. And Tony Fadell is like this just larger than life and Nest, and he buys Dropcam. And it's like, it's like, and Dropcam was, they were, doing some amazing stuff. And so it was, I would say it was very scary, but the other side was we had such a strong mission. So I had a super strong mission. I also had this thing where I always said, like, have people visualize, like, if we're not going to make it, I want there to be like a giant hole in the ground where our office was in Santa Monica. Like we are burning the boats so much that like I want it to be a crater. If we like we're not gonna like squeak our way out of business. We are going to like literally be like the greatest bankruptcy of all time. Like we're going for it. And so we really like truly, which is like a venture thing, is like we win for it. And I think any venture, if you interviewed any of the people that were in there, they were probably like, yeah, Jamie scared the shit out of us many times.
Do you think founders see competition right today? Do you think they use competition right? You said about burn the boats. People are like, oh, you should never, you shouldn't compare yourself to others. I want to. People say kill them with kindness. David Goggins says, no, like strangle them with your success. Like every run, I'm like, the girlfriends that dump me, I'm getting fitter. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I would say I think you want to be focused on like that. You have to exist for your customer. Like you have to be like the customer needs you so much that like that's like so you see competition and like yeah, like Tony with Nest, like I mean it was like he was at Google and he bought Dropcam. Like I mean I'm a human being. Like you see this, but I did get like the mission again. Like that's where mission to me is of one thing. It's probably the strongest North Star, because if you have that, if you're missionary, like it's amazing if you look at like how missionary people are able to like defy gravity when they shouldn't be, because you believe in something that's sort of bigger than this like tactical business. Because on the tactical business side, if we said like, oh yeah, we're gonna out of our garage in Santa Monica, we should be fine going after Nest and Google, like in Dropcam, like that shouldn't be a problem. Like we're totally fine.
Would you ever invest in people without a mission? I'm an investor by day. I see a lot of people who do 4x4 quadrants and say highest margin.
Couldn't care less.
Couldn't care less.
Because long term, it's like business changes, technology changes, like chatbot AI comes out, like what, like it's like I want, like what do you want in your soul to achieve? And if that's something that's interesting to me, then I want to back that. And I do like when it benefits society. It doesn't have to. I mean, there's people that do lots of things that make money that don't benefit society. I like putting my time, money, energy, brain power on something that has some benefit to society, because I feel like that's stuff that if I lose, I still won. Like losing trying to help people is still a good thing.
Do you think people convey their mission in the right way today? And what I mean by that is, like, I always say, if you had a billboard, like, what would you put on it? 10 words or less. And so few can do that.
So they're scared to for the right reason, which is that money doesn't really... So I did this thing, I don't know if I've ever even talked about it. I did a triple deck. So when I had one round that I raised, I won't even say which one, but it was a later round, and where I was actually in control. It was like the first time that I was actually like the belle of the ball. Like, you know, like people wanted to talk to me for like a little bit. And so I went with this triple deck. The first deck was all mission. And when I ended it, it felt like it could have been all that I like talked about. And literally there'd be venture capitalists, very prominent ones, that would be like, oh, wow, like you have a great mission. I'm sure your business sucks. Like, thanks for coming. And I'd be like, yeah, it sucks. It totally sucks. It's a shit business. And then there'd be like these great venture capitalists that would be like, wow, that's so cool. Like, I totally get how this could lead to like all these products. And I'm like, let me show you. And then deck 2 was all the product roadmap of what we could build off of this mission. And this was very early. Like we still were like a few products, not like showing the whole roadmap. And so they're like, oh my. And so then some people would be like, that's great, but like, you're probably not selling anything because all you keep talking about is mission and product. And I'd be like, yeah, shit business. And I'd leave. And then I do then for the people that are like, wow, things must be going really great. This is awesome. I love what you're doing. I'd show them the third deck, which was actually our financials, which was pretty damn good at the time from like revenue growth, everything else. And the best part about this is very prominent VC, we sell, comes to me and says like, when you pitched me, you totally screwed up. We never saw how good the business was. We totally would have invested. And I said, no, I was interviewing you and you didn't pass the mission test.
Oh. Because they didn't dig deeper? Because they didn't get it? Because they were like, so like, great, you have a mission. Who gives a shit? Like, how's the business? And I only wanted people, that cared, that they would have been also happy losing if this mission was accomplished. And like, okay, Jamie, I'm gonna push back just on one sec. Like,
let's do it.
We meet 30 companies a week. Okay, everyone has a fucking mission. Everyone wants to change an industry. Some are sincere, some aren't sincere. You learn over time. You meet once, you've never met before. It's one intro. You come in. It's an hour at max. It's really freaking hard to tell when you're meeting 30 companies. Your wife's kicked you off, out of the bedroom because you snore. Yeah. Your kid's not happy at school. And you know what? Maybe they're just like, this is my 29th mission of the week. Where are the fucking sales? Like,
so I'll flip it around that I meet 50 of you a week, and I'm also interviewing for who cares about who everyone says they care about mission. Who cares about it enough to ask the right questions? Who cares about it enough to realize that this mission could actually lead to something that's so special? Like who fits that? And so, yes, of course, like anything, you're going to miss someone. But I think we were able to put together an investor group that when we did hit the wall, like when I hit that wall, my investor, like they were in they were like, I'll never forget Mood from Kleiner. I mean, he was literally up all night on the phone calling people and would 7 a.m. be like, I talked to 25 people yesterday. I mean, it was like people were, because they cared.
Final one before we move on to the acquisition, but I have to ask it. You know, we look at like the Ring brand, and it looks like just a series of right decisions. When you review it, if you had your time again,
I can't. I don't even know where to start. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
if you had your time again, what would you do differently with the Ring brand decisions that you made?
So I would say where it ended up. So I look at making a brand or a company like making wine, and so the best wine comes from grapes that are stressed, that have like they're on a hillside with rocks, and like they don't have all the water, they don't have all the like they get sort of stressed because if they have like too much water, too much fertilizer, they become like big juicy fat grapes. And so I kind of look at the same thing, which is like the stress of the problems we had led to the innovations. And so if we didn't stress ourselves, and we continue to do this even sometimes artificially, you have to kind of stress yourself to make something great happen. It's like, you know, they say like pressure creates diamonds. And so I would love to take away all the hard parts because they probably aged me 10 more years. Like I'll probably, if I die 10 years earlier than I should, it's because of Ring, which is, you know, it's okay. Like, but they did stress me out, but then I think they led to like all the great things. So if you took them out, we'd probably just be like a big, juicy, fat, sugary, dumb grape.
I had Brian Armstrong on the show from Coinbase, and he said that the best CEOs insert risk into the business, which I thought was a really interesting perspective. Do you agree with that? And if you reflect, do you think you inserted enough risk?
I would say it's constraint. I would use the word constraint. It might be the same exact thing what he's talking about, but to me, it's these artificial constraints. It might be deadlines to get something out by that are too early. It might be when we do product development, everyone wants to do like we're going to build this product in 2 years and it does everything we know today. And I'm like, oh, that's fun. The technology for 2 years hasn't evolved. I'm like, no, we're going to like push it to stuff that we can just imagine being done, but is like sort of hard to imagine how it'll get there, and force ourselves to invent. So I think you have to keep putting yourself in the box. The problem is that I do this well. I think I do a good job at this in the company. And then I also do it in my own personal life. And that becomes, you know, like I kind of always realize I'm always kind of like pushing myself deeper, whether it's my time into something like I can't. So it is like learning how to like balance those constraints, and whether the business or personal, so that they don't go too far. Because to the grape example of the wine, if you give the grapes 0 water and 0 fertilizer, they're dead grapes, and dead grapes don't make any wine.
I mean, I feel like we should have a cocktail and talk about the personal side.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's 9 a.m. here. I'm happy to open up some wine. I mean, that's like, it's past 9.
The common thing is, Harry, I just want you to listen to me. I don't need a solution. I'm like, okay, I'll just listen when I know the fucking answer. Anyway, poor Dave, he has to put up with this. Well, we've talked a little bit. We mentioned the acquisition by Amazon. I want to understand that. Like, how did the deal come to be? You mentioned 45 days after that challenging period. Yes. How did the deal come to be?
So we had been working with Amazon. Amazon had been, you know, they obviously a lot of stuff in the home, Alexa. They were just coming out with screens with Alexa. They had been, we were a large-ish camera company at the time. Like we weren't that big, but in the sort of new age camera field, we were, you know, decent size. And so they came to us to integrate with the Alexa, with the screen. And so we had been working with them for a few years and forging a relationship where it was really a relationship of like learning each other's culture and trust. And so it was a great run of doing that, and that's what led to then, you know, in the end, like that's where they said like let's put this together.
Okay, so they say let's put it together. What does that actually like mean? Like what? So
actually, I'll give you like the funny thing. So we're at lunch with the corp dev person, and who's like a good friend, you know, Nick Comoros, a great friend still today. And we're there, and he says, you know, I think it's time we come together. And it's one of those like, I don't want to like jump across the table and be like, yes, I'll sell, because then he's going to be like, no, come together on this next project. Like, what are you talking about? So I'm like, do you mean? And so it was like one of those, like, it was like one of those like Zoolander moments, you know, like, what do you mean? Like, what do you mean? Like, you know, back and forth. And so finally he's like, yeah, to buy you. And I'm like, yes. Okay, let's do it.
I'm so tired. I've been wondering when you're going to ask.
I told my investors, I told Amazon, I was either going to go public or sell to Amazon. Those are my two options. And it was because the only company that I felt would really take the mission take it and allow us to keep executing on it and stay true to it was Amazon or staying independent and go public. I did not know of another company that would buy us and truly honor what we were trying to do. And I wasn't actually done. That's the funny thing. I was not like tired of doing it. I was so on the mission. I wanted to accelerate that as much as I could.
Okay, but my question then is, like, if you weren't done, you just got over that very challenging period. I spoke to Randy at DFJ. I told you I stalked you before the show.
Yep.
And he said specifically asked why that time you decided was the right time. Because you could have done another year, 2x the company, whatever, grown the company and sold for more. Why then? So
here you're a missionary person. You have this thing that you believe in and you love, and you almost lost it 45 days before this. Like literally, I mean, like truly almost lost it. Like, I mean, like where it would have been, it would have been sold, but like a fire sale sold, like not like no. And so I did like the canary in the coal mine, and the canary died. And so I said to my, I'm like, going to Amazon is going to allow us to now like really execute on this vision we have and achieve what we know we can achieve. And we're not going to die in the process. Like, it was can you imagine how emotional that time was? I mean, where I literally looked at like myself, like if things hadn't worked out the other way, like I don't know if I would have, like I might've had to move personally move. Like, I don't know if I could have afforded the house I was in, which was not a fancy house. Like I had everything was in ring. What do you say to yourself when you're staring into the abyss? When you have that moment when you could lose the most important thing other than your wife, obviously, obviously, important addendum there. Most important thing. What do you say to yourself? So, what I said was like, basically, again, this is where I get very common checklist, which is like, what do I need to do to get through this? And I sort of take all the stress of it. Like, it's funny, it comes back afterwards. Like, you don't get rid of it, but I sort of push it all to the side. And it's like, I only have one, there's only one road to live, and I got to go down that road, and it's risky, but I'm going to do it because like, if you flail, you're dead. I mean, so I just got super focused. And then afterwards, I mean, the stress was, I mean, it was like one of those just emotional, I mean, like insane. Like, I mean, it was like, I might still be dealing with the PTSD today. Seriously. Like, I love it. How did you celebrate the deal? Dave said I had to ask this one. So Amazon happens, this Zoolander moment happens, and it's like done. How did you celebrate? There's been some celebration. I mean, I bought a mountain bike. That was great. I might have bought a couple other things, but I really celebrated. Can I ask a stupid question? Does money just like come into your account one day, like boom? Or is it like over time? It's actually the weirdest thing. So you end up like announcing the sale, and everyone thinks you have the money that day. Yeah. But then the government has to like look over the deal, and then the government says, okay, you can buy it, and then there's like you have to still do this whole thing. So like you actually don't know when this is going to like literally like refreshing the thing. So a friend of mine asked me to speak at like Task Us, which is a public company now, asked me to speak at his conference. And I said it like months earlier that I would do it. So it just happens that I'm literally there, and the money's supposed to come in, and I'm like literally like sitting there, like I'm like speaking, and I like just hit like a refresh, and all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, and everyone's like, what? I'm like, sorry guys. I'm like, the actual closing just happened. I'm like, this is pretty cool. Did you tell them that? Oh, yeah. And I said, like, this is the first time I've ever had money in my life. So I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just going to take a moment here to just, like, I said, you just get to bear with me. Like, I've never had money in my life, and this is unbelievable. And I'm just going to, like, give me, like, 1 second, and I will get back to, like, our previously scheduled programming. I love that. How did you feel? Like, you said that was the first time you'd ever had money in your life. How did you feel? It was just like, it's going to be all right. Like, I think I never felt like things would be all right. There's a lot of different entrepreneurs and a lot of different types of entrepreneurs. Like, there's some that are so confident that I think they actually don't care. Like, they're like, oh, I'll just make it no matter what. I'm not that guy. Like, I live in fear. And so I always... What are you in fear of? In fear of losing everything? In fear of losing the house? Yeah. In fear of just, I think part of why I like, maybe that's, that's what I'm running from. There you go. You got it. Like, you keep digging, You'll find it out. Like, I'm so in fear of everything that I overcompensate on the other side. So like, if I'm going to build a brand, I'm so in fear of not being the best brand that I do every single thing I can do to make that brand. Like I do like I over like my emails on every box. Like I do every single, like I just throw like everything at it. And I think it's the fear that drives me for that, which is a funny thing because you think it's like confidence. Like you think like, oh, he's built this great company. Like he must be so confident. And it's like, I'm just like, I wake up every day like in sweats, like sweating. Like
It seems weird, honestly, Jamie, because we're told about the fearless leader. We're told about the courage which comes from lack of fear, which is like the at-bats, the experimentation. And the fear can create paralysis. Did it ever create actually a lack of progression because you were scared?
And I think so. Maybe that's my superpower is that I turn the fear into like it's the furnace that powers me, so it drives me. Like I'm not crippled by fear. I over execute because of fear. So I think I use it to do that. It's really funny. Actually, I had a conversation with a very famous quarterback. I won't say his name just because I don't know if he'll want it out there or whatever. But I gave him this whole thing about fear, and I said, "Do you have any of that?" And he said, "Nope. I'm the best. I'm the best there is, and I know that." And I was like, and he literally is the best quarterback of all time. And I said, wow, okay. I said, so like, see, two people can be successful and do it differently. You're more successful, so maybe I should have been the person who didn't have fear.
I do want to touch on like the acquisition post deal. It's gone so well, which bluntly is very rare. Like, I think we forget that. Like I think more than 50% of acquisitions don't really go well post acquisition. This has been a tremendous success. We break it down into what you did and what Amazon did. What did you do post acquisition to make the Ring acquisition deal a real success for both?
So I think the one thing I'll say, and like again, there's probably 1,000 things that made it successful. I was all in on being successful at Amazon. And the day that we closed, I was like, I'm an Amazonian. Now I run Ring and I care about what Ring is, but I'm an Amazonian. I'm all in on Amazon. We're going to do this together. And I realized that nothing's a 10 out of 10, that no company's perfect, but like we're doing this. And that I think oozed and sort of marinated into my team, which marinated like, and so everybody was like, we're on this together. This is great. Like, and Amazon on the other side, they leaned in and said like we want to be part of Ring. And so like it really, and culturally we were so aligned. Like the things that we cared about culturally are like the leadership principles at Amazon. I wish I was elegant enough to have written them myself at Ring. Like they are exactly what I believe a company should do, exactly how a company should run. Like what Jeff set out to do is like, he really is what I, would love to aspire to be in terms of that leader and that leadership style.
It's one thing that you say I'm an Amazonian post-deal, I'm an Amazonian. It's another thing to get everyone you work with in your team to. A lot of people often harbor a little bit of resentment. They loved what it was before.
Yeah.
How do you bring everyone with you in your excitement post-acquisition?
I think, again, it goes to authenticity, right? Like leaders, I can't tell people to like, I'm not going to have this is the problem. You have a meeting and you're like, okay, you're all Amazonians now. And this is what I expect from you. I did it because they saw in my heart that I was excited. They saw how and it's not one day. The leadership principle at Amazon is earns trust. And I love that one because it's not, you don't get to just tell them the next day it's good and everyone says it's good. It took a while, but they saw that every day I came in and I had that same passion, that same energy. And so and that just like, it just oozed out and like everyone saw it and everyone could feel it. And then that's the culture.
I really hope we'll be friends, Jamie, because I need your advice. You said earn trust. I don't hire people, and my one criticism from my investors is you don't hire people and you just kind of you're the dependency. It's because I don't trust people. You meet me, do you trust me? You don't know me. Like, to hire me in a position of great responsibility. And so how do you build trust and accelerate trust building processes when you're hiring?
One of the important things for me is that no matter how many people have done things for me to lose trust, I've never lost believing in people. And so I'm always willing to take another risk because you have to earn trust, you have to take risk. And so I'm always willing to take a risk on someone and then let them either earn trust or if they don't, then deal with that. And so I think it's a little bit like just like taking, just literally it is like, team is taking risk. Everything is team. So like the leverage you get in life is from team. And so, I think it's just, you have to take the leap. And then if someone burns the trust, get them out. But I think the one thing I'd say is, and I think this is where people go wrong, is they learn from that. Like someone burns them and they learn from it. And I'd rather keep getting hurt and find a few great people than never be with great people. And I think those are the choices we have. I don't think we have a third choice there.
I think it's conflict avoidance. It's easier to learn from than to try multiple people. It's like this melee of 6 out of 10 versus having the 9 out of 10 and the 3 out of 10. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Totally agree. We mentioned what you did well there. What did Amazon do well to make you and the integration go so well?
I mean, like the first email I got the day it closed, came from Jeff and said, like, don't let us, mess it up. You are in control. And so I think they were, obviously it's a public company. We have a responsibility to them, but they were very respectful of us. And I think it's what, if you look, Amazon's done a lot of acquisitions that have been successful, maybe more than anyone. And I think the one thing I would say is that they respect the companies they buy. And that in itself is like, it's an amazing thing when you have that respect.
What does it mean they were... Sorry, I'm really naive here.
No.
Do they like put in Amazon execs and say like, here's your CFO and here's, how does it work?
And over time, now it's been 5 years. Like we have done a lot of integration just naturally, which it'd be like stupid. Imagine like you go to the best university and you don't use any of the instructors, it's like, or the library. It's like, so... But they let me do it on, like, they let me lead that. Like, they let the team, like, my team lead that. They respected that. And so it allowed it to happen naturally versus, like you said, like, here's the, here's the playbook and here's this. Now, the one thing, and again, this is where it made it easy, is like the culture. It's like, here's kind of our culture at Amazon. It's like, wow, that's our culture at Ring. So we don't need to relearn that. It's kind of like, we are who you are.
Can I ask, what do you think they gave you that you didn't have?
Like when you grow that fast, like you don't have the right processes in HR. These are things that you need to spread out over like very large organizations. And so all of a sudden, like you go to this place and you're like, wow, like it's, I said in some ways it was like when your parents give you the credit card when you go to college and you get to like just go in and buy stuff. It's like, in some ways, like Amazon gave me a credit card, said, here, go in the store and you get to choose what you want to use. Like you want more CFOing? Like here, but go get our finance team. You want more of this? Go get this.
Does it change your relationship to risk when you have Amazon in the background as your bluntly owner and parent?
Which is why the constraints thing, you have to figure out ways to still create those constraints. And I think my internal furnace, and this is what's interesting. People always say like money doesn't matter. I think any entrepreneur will say, oh, money doesn't matter. I just want to build this company. Like, bullshit. But once I sold, I did realize like money didn't matter to me in the sense of driving Ring. Like I'm still like, hey, you can ask people here. Like I still get just as emotional on calls when we screw something up because I'm angry about what we're doing for, we call our customers neighbors. Like I'm angry what we're not supplying to our neighbors. I'm angry at and so it's not, money was a good part of this, but I still have that drive. And I think that's the difference. Is like, who still has that drive? Like who really cares? Like if you care about that mission, it doesn't matter. And so yes, money was great because now we're not going to go out of business tomorrow, but that doesn't make it easier to build a great product.
Jamie, you are emotional, you're passionate. I'm the same. And I worry that it's not always actually productive in leadership. I will absolutely let go on someone. I will have my say and it is not varnished and I'm doing a feedback review. I'm fucking pissed. I'm pissed off. Like, do you think emotions can actually prevent you from being a great leader?
So I think I still have definitely... I still act sometimes in ways that are probably negative to the situation. Like they probably don't benefit the situation. I'd say, but over time I've gotten better at letting the emotions help drive things. So when I was super young, I blew things up that looking back, it was like, wow, if you just had been a little more like a little more thoughtful about that, the outcome for everyone would have been better. So I certainly had those times when I was not perfect. But I'd say the other side is like, people do see, like, if you're not an asshole, like if you're yelling about something because you're upset about your customers, like people also get upset about it. And then I think it does like help drive things when people realize that like they're not working for a robot. They're like working for someone who cares and then they care. So I do think it does it can sort of be beneficial, but yeah, I think it is something to work on for everybody probably who's leading anything and is passionate.
Before I delve into your personal life, which I'm fascinated to do, I hear you have some news. We talked about leadership styles there. I'd love to hear what the news is, because I've been dangled the carrot that there is news, and Melissa, being the ultimate pro, told me that you would tell me. So what is the news, and can you share a little bit with me?
So the news is that I'm going to step aside as CEO of Ring, and I'll be the chief inventor, which is what I always called myself. And we're going to bring a new CEO in to take the reins and try to take this, I'd say, fairly massive business to the next level.
I think the question everyone will be asking is two things. Why now? One, and then two, what are you going to do now? Obviously you're still there with Ring, but you'll have more time, I take it. So how do you think about those two?
So I think the great story of Amazon, it's not why now. I talked to Amazon a year ago and I said, I think that where my passion is, where I am, I think I'm a good business leader, but this thing's gotten so big that there's probably a better person now. So it is a real company, and I still want to help on the product. I still want to get the emails. But I don't think I'm the best person to be the CEO anymore. And as there is a CEO. And putting your title as CEO does prevent people from doing to being empowered to do other things. And so a year ago, we started the process of looking and figuring that out, and working with my boss, who's Dave Limp, who runs all the devices. And so I actually told the team this summer that we were doing this and that we were in the process of it and that we would take some time. And so it's been I'd say a very sort of the right way to do this, which is no one felt like it was going to be immediate. We're trying to make the right decisions for the business. And I do look at Ring. I have one kid. Most people have two. I think the average is two. The second one is Ring. And so I do look at no matter what, Ring is my child. It always will be. I'll always care for it. No matter what, in 30 years, whatever it is, it'll always be something that matters to me.
If my child was worth as much as Ring, I would have favorites.
That's true.
Just putting it out there.
Sorry, Oliver, but Ring did sell for over $1 billion, and so
what are you gonna do? You gotta be.
I mean, he's 14. That's tough. It's tough. That's tough.
I have to ask. I heard obviously about fatherhood being such a big part of your life, which is wonderful. What does being a great father mean to you, Jamie?
I think being a great father has been integrating, my son's life. So my son was 3 when we started this. He was at the factory with me when he was 5 in China, which people were you can't bring a 5-year-old to China. And I'm why not? Why can't
Nike
you?
did.
Yeah. So I did. I just bring kids to China. Sure. And so he's grown up with the business. And I think that's, for me, it's partly it was a way to spend time with him. But partly it's all I want him to be able to achieve in his life is to find his passion. I just want him to do something that he loves, that he believes in. And so I hope that going through this journey with me and seeing this, and that, he'll see that this was my passion, and that he'll get to that same place himself.
Do you think that money allows him to pursue that freedom more than he would otherwise? And I think it does, because the truth is there are some people who love sculptures and being a sculptor or whatever the fuck it is.
I would say if you look at statistics, it's probably the other way. I would say probably most kids that grow up with a lot of money have trouble finding happiness, because I think the money becomes a responsibility. I didn't have that. I was just able to go out and do my thing, because I didn't have to worry about being who my dad was or whatever. And so I think there's something to that I'm trying to hopefully instill in him, that it's really not, it wasn't the money, it was what we did for people, what we accomplished, what our product, what the product accomplished, what we were able to invent, that's what mattered. And so I pray to anything that my son grows up just passionate about. Like you said, if it's sculpture, if it's running a food bank, I don't care what it is. I just hope that it's what he feels in his heart is what he wants to do every day and wake up to do.
What's the hardest thing about parenting, Jamie? I didn't have kids. If you were Harry, this is hard, what would you tell me?
I mean, the worst thing for me would be having an asshole as a kid. Like a kid who's just not like, like there are kids that are just, and I think a lot of times it's parents that don't spend time with the kids or are busy or are whatever. And so it's like, I'd hate if my son wasn't empathetic to people, didn't care about things. Like it would literally kill me. And my son is like, he is sweet and empathetic and passionate and about his own things. Like he doesn't like the things I like, which I kind of almost like, I love skiing. He doesn't really like skiing. I kind of love that. Like, it's like, he loves basketball. Like, great. Like, you love basketball, like, go be the best basketball player in the world.
When he was born, where was the company?
It wasn't.
What stage?
0. So I started it when he was 3 in the garage. So he literally grew up. We have like some pictures of it, but like he literally grew up in the middle of the garage floor with his toys, with like 3 guys sitting around at desks. And we called ourselves the Siminoff brothers. And so he'd come in after preschool, and it would be Siminoff Brothers Unite. And then he'd sit there with like a truck and like on the thing. And by the way, the 2 other people that were in that are still at Ring today, John Modestine and August Cement.
My question is like, do you think having a child drives you in a level that just you alone cannot? You are not responsible just for yourself now, but it's another. Does it bring a different dimension?
It's certainly, it's good and bad. So like, one is you want to do stuff because you want for the child. The other side is like the risk side. It becomes harder because you're now affecting a life with what you do. Like when the company almost went under, it was like, I had to think about, wow, like we might have to move my son out of the house that he knows and put him in public school versus the school that he's in right now. And again, like we weren't living like on the high horse at the time, but like it would have been a big change. It's like, wow, I'm going to have to like affect his life. And that's tough.
Yeah, that's really tough. Final one, I promise, before I intrude too deeply. You're an intense dude, respectfully. How do you like have this intensity in your marriage and like with your wife without her being like, whoa, Jamie, too much, like calm down?
Again, I think something I've been lucky is to be somewhat balanced, like in and out. Like I almost look at it like an athlete, like on and off the field. Like I kind of know when I'm on the field, I play as hard as anyone could ever play that game. But when I step off the field, I actually am able to turn a lot of that off in that way. Like I'm not competitive in my own personal life with like some people, and I see it, like they're competitive in every single thing they do. Like, if like I'm drinking water, when I feel like they'll have to drink water faster, like everything has to be better. Like I'm not that. Like I'm super competitive in what I do with Ring. I'm super passionate about it. Like I cared so deeply about that, but then I am able to like go and, be silly and like be with my son and my wife and be with people and like not have that same intensity. And I think that's I hope it's a good balance. I think it is.
I know. I think it's a very good balance. I could probably just learn from it.
But I do think so. I would say like younger, I didn't have that balance as much. And I think I did, like, these are some things that I learned over time, which is I do look at some of these some of these young people that are so successful. I don't think I could have been that successful that young. I think I needed to learn too many things. You're way better than I am. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I've been doing it for 8 years. People think, I feel like, there's like sports stars who like, wow, and it's like they've been in it for a long time. Yeah. You fuck up a lot.
Yeah.
Is the lesson. Sorry, final thing. Are you tolerant? I'm really intolerant. If it's not done right, I am pissed. Like, I'm not mediocre is not okay. Tomorrow is not okay. And I'm pissed off, and I'm also, I'm just letting leash now. I'm pissed off with always having to be the one who is driving this. What? Like, seriously, I pay you to do your job. Why is it me chasing you?
I certainly, when it matters to our customers, our neighbors, I, like 100% is all that I will accept. Like, I will not accept anything less. Sometimes you put a product out that's not there yet. Like, sometimes, like you do some of these things, but it just it destroys me. And I see, and one thing that does kill me is I see what we're coming out with next always. And so I just always want to get that to our neighbors as fast as I can. And it takes time. And there's one of the best, I don't know if like the biography of Walt Disney, if you've ever read that.
No, I haven't, but it's been on my to-do list.
Like, read that, because the best thing the thing I love is like I've had this every product we launch, I'm always sad that day because I know what we're coming out with next. Like I know what it could be better at. And Walt Disney at every premiere for these movies that people were literally like Academy Award winning and it was like the best animation of all time and all, but he knew that the next animation version he was working on was better. And so he would sit in the back miserable at the premiere because he was mad that he couldn't show what was actually better already. And so I do have that drive and that feeling of like, I just want to get the next thing out, which there's always like, hopefully there'll never not be a next thing. I mean, like then I'll run out of invention.
I'm sure there'll be a next thing. I heard about Edison Jr.'s incubations. I think you've got enough ideas, Jamie. I'm going to do a quick fire with you. So I say a short statement. You give me your immediate thoughts. Does that sound okay?
Great.
So you mentioned there Walt Disney. What are the other books that you would say like must read?
Oh, Invention by James Dyson.
Actually, I listened to a fantastic podcast with him by Founders Podcast, David Sandler. Very, very good. I'll send it to you afterwards.
I will. Listen, anything with James Dyson, I'm like in. Like he's like my man crush hero.
What have you changed your mind on in the last 12 months?
I change my mind all the time on things. So you evolve as a person. I can't think of like a big thing I've changed my mind on in the last 12 months. I'm trying to.
Mine is remote work. Back in the office. Everyone's fucking loving it. Like it is so much better. Amazon just went to basically a full 3 days a week thing, and I back them in that. But I also will say I still do appreciate the work from home. I get you. You also have kids and a wife. I'm, alone in the dark. That sounds really sinister and creepy. What are you most optimistic about, Jamie? What are you excited for in the world? There's a lot of fucking pessimism. What are you excited
I think, as an inventor, there's always problems. And so I think we are at like a renaissance right now. The one thing that upsets me right now is the press has decided this is like a bad time. The press is like, oh, bad time. No, it is tough. There are things that are tough, but there are so many great things happening in transportation, electrification. Like there's just like, even in my own business around security, like the stuff we're inventing, I don't think I've been more excited about a time of what's happening. I mean, look at like the autonomous cars. Like there's just so much cool stuff coming. And so to me, I am very pro like world, pro long-term, pro excited.
Are you not concerned by the like deglobalization? Sorry, I'm taking it political, but like the sense of security, like from a world where we have been to these isolated large blocks of nations that hate each other and throw missiles across borders.
I'm optimistic that things work their way out. I certainly like seeing things that are not working their way out makes me sad, but overall I'm like pro world, pro sort of, I think these things will happen and I think these macro forces will win. And I do think like good will win over evil, I guess.
What did you learn the most from Amazon and being involved with Amazon?
I learned so much. I would say the one thing I really saw was scale and big. My brain, I could never have imagined what scale and size is until I got into Amazon.
What does that mean? Like, just like as an example.
It's like going from thinking in millions to billions and then trillions. Like it's just everything there is so big that it just changes the way you look at stuff. I just look at like how you look at the world, how you look at size. And I do think we can strain ourselves by our own surroundings and our own sort of thoughts. And there are great entrepreneurs that can do this without sort of seeing it. I was someone who probably needed to work my way up to it, but now it's like once that's released, it's hard to go back to like, and it's not about like, I still have my email in every box. So it's not about not doing things that are small. It's just how that comes into like the consideration of big.
How many emails do you get a day, roughly?
It's crazy. Not that many, like probably 10 to 20 from neighbors.
Wow.
So yeah. But that's because like the entire organization is built around making sure that everybody is satisfied.
I'm going to get everyone in my teams to email you.
I'm a great emailer.
That would be hilarious. What's the most painful lesson that you've been through that you're pleased to have been through because you actually came out stronger?
I mean, one of the most painful things in the last year has been, the reduction of force that's happened, around our teams. I mean, the effect that's happened on people has been just super tough to be a part of. I think it's been, something that I am it's something the company has to do, as part of being a company. But so I'd say I wouldn't use the word please, but I think it's like, I think we did it because it was the right thing. But wow, what a tough thing to have to like affect people like that. And just, and being a part of that has been just really tough, and like how that's impacted the team.
Jamie, what would you most like to change about venture?
About venture, it's like, I think, I do this the mission thing of like, I would like venture to truly think more about how it can, well, what I'd like to change about venture, and I think it's already changed, but it is actually, is that it overwatered the grapes. And that was an unfair thing to do to entrepreneurs. It actually hurt the entrepreneurs. It gave too much money to too many people too fast, and the wrong goals. And it led people who are great people into the wrong places that it really hurt them. And so I think venture has to be more disciplined, because what it does can also hurt others.
Woof. Went there, Jamie. Woof. I'm with you. That 1000x ARR company that I have, that was really pricey. Moving swiftly past that.
We won't talk about that.
We won't talk about that. They've got 10 years of runway. It'll be fine. My question to you is, we've got 5 years ahead. It's 2028. Me and you sit down again for this, hopefully in person.
Yes.
Where are you then, Jamie?
I hope I'm still at Amazon as a chief inventor. I hope I am able to have some time to do things also, on the outside. I have a few businesses that I've supported. One in Missouri that's very close to my heart now. This direct-to-consumer meat business called Moink, and I'm supporting like sort of the town and doing so. I hope in 5 years we're able to see the things that I've done that have mattered, and that like I've continued to evolve in that way, so that like we talk about 5 years of things that have benefited society, people, and again, hopefully I've built some great businesses and things, but I hope that it's in a way that you'd say like this person has mattered over the last 5 years.
Jamie, I so hope that you didn't get the schedule beforehand, because you're going to be going, what on earth did you do, Harry? This was not aligned to what we said. I've loved this. Thank you so much for being so open, and you've been an amazing guest, my friend.